For years, the van der Linde gang survived on a simple rule: trust Dutch. He was the architect of their freedom, the man with the plan, but true freedom requires a foundation. And Dutch's foundation relied entirely on two men to keep him grounded. Arthur Morgan was his muscle, his loyal son. Hosea Matthews was his mind, his cautious brother. Hosea was the only person who could look Dutch in the eye and tell him, no. He was the anchor, the voice of reason that kept Dutch's grand ambitions from turning into suicide missions. But as civilization pushes west, the gang is backed into a corner. They find themselves in St. Denis, a city of smoke, steel, and law. Everything Dutch hates. Desperate to escape, Dutch plans a massive bank robbery. Hosea warns him against it. He feels the trap closing in, but Dutch, blinded by his own myth, refuses to listen. The heist goes disastrously wrong. In the chaos, Hosea is captured by Milton. In the middle of the street, Pinkertons gun Hosea down. Watch Dutch's face in that moment. Something snaps. The anchor is gone. The one man who kept Dutch human is dead. Moments later, during the escape, a trolley crashes. Dutch takes a violent blow to the head. He dismisses it, but from this exact moment, his behavior shifts. The charismatic philosopher begins to vanish. In his place, a desperate, paranoid beast begins to wake up. Stranded on the brutal island of Guarma, away from his family and his comforts, Dutch's true nature slips out. He strangles an old, helpless woman in a cave for money. He tells Arthur it was necessary, but Arthur sees the truth. Dutch didn't kill her to survive. He killed her because he liked the control. The gang eventually makes it back to America, but they do not return to the same leader. The man who left for St. Denis was a savior. The man who came back was a predator. The swamp waters of Lemoyne were putrid, but the air in Beaver Hollow was downright poisonous. The gang returned from Guarma to find their world completely broken. They were no longer running toward a dream, they were just running out of time. In the middle of this collapse stood Micah Bell. Before the downfall, Micah was an outsider, a loose cannon kept at arm's length by Hosea's caution and Arthur's disgust. But with Hosea buried in an unmarked grave, a massive power vacuum opened right next to Dutch, and Micah eagerly stepped into it. Micah didn't challenge Dutch's ideas, he fed them. He realized that a paranoid, isolated leader doesn't want to hear hard truths. He wants to hear unyielding praise. Micah became the ultimate echo chamber. While Arthur begged Dutch to look at the reality of their situation, Micah whispered exactly what Dutch wanted to hear. You are a genius. The others are doubters. Anyone who questions you is a traitor. Watch how Dutch's posture changes in these final chapters. He stops sitting around the campfire with the family. He retreats to his tent, isolated with only Micah allowed inside. By the end, the camp at Beaver Hollow isn't a family anymore. It is a cult of blind obedience. Dutch stands on the edge of the cliff looking down at a world that has completely outgrown him. He can no longer distinguish between a loyal son and a snake in his ear. When Arthur looks him in the eye, bleeding and dying, and says, I gave you all I had, Dutch. Something breaks inside the leader. He doesn't choose Micah. He doesn't choose Arthur. He simply turns his back and walks away into the snow, abandoning everything he ever built. For the next 12 years, Dutch lives as a ghost. He tries to recreate his old life with new gangs, but the philosophy is gone. The utopian dream is dead. All that remains is an old man fueled by pure, chaotic spite against a civilization he cannot stop. When John Marston finally corners him on the snowy peaks of Cochinet years later, Dutch doesn't fight. He doesn't make a plan. He stands on the edge of another cliff, looking at the modern world closing in on him one last time. He looks at John and delivers his final tragic truth. Our time has passed, John. Dutch van der Linde didn't just lose his mind, he lost the war against time itself. And in the end, his greatest tragedy was realizing that he was never a savior, just a relic of a dying world.